After 17 games in 17 days, the Guardians are getting a well-deserved day off. We don't take days off here. They're looking towards the future. We're looking towards the past and the future. We're going to revisit our 2024 prospect draft. Look what we got right. Look what we got wrong. So many things wrong. So many things wrong.
Tanner Bagby of the Guardians, and you're listening to Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today.
Maybe book something in Houston or Seattle. Who knows what's going on? Thanks, Mariners. On today's show, we said we're going to take a look back at our prospect draft in 2024. We're going to look at how we did there. I'm going to give you a spoiler on that already. We didn't do great. We didn't draft.
I'm annoyed
really
with myself.
It was pretty bad. We sit here and people will be like, oh, these are the prospect guys. They do prospect stuff. We could talk about prospects, doesn't mean we could predict the future. So we didn't get a lot of those right. We're going to have some fun with that. We're going to get into Travis Bazzana as well, because he's a guy obviously they couldn't draft, but his season's over. The minor league season and as a whole is over. So I know the Clippers have potentially 3 games this week too in the International League playoffs, maybe a 4th on Saturday. We'll see. But the minor league season in all of essence is over until the Arizona Fall League. So we'll get into reviewing his season a little bit and some other guys. If time allows, we'll have a little bit of a 40-man discussion too. It'll be baked into our prospect draft look back. It'll be a fun time as the Guardians get ready for the battle of the Ohio Cup.
The most important cup in baseball, even more important than the protective kind. For those who do not know me, I'm Jeff Ellis, one of your 2 co-hosts here. Before this, I was a draft and analyst. Sorry, getting thrown off by the music. Draft and prospect analyst nationally at Scouting 24/7. Yesterday, I was your 49th in honor of in 1949. When Cleveland got eliminated, they buried the 1948 pennant. Bill Veeck had him do this whole thing, and then it became a superstition that it cursed the team because they didn't win a World Series after that. So that was for that one. And then today I am your 62nd favorite blogger at every Cleveland sports blog that has or will exist.
You just demoted yourself just because of your prospect draft, right? That's your performance.
It's because for some reason, even though I had Cade Smith as the number 1 reliever on my board, I chose not to take him. I didn't even take my number 2 guy. For some reason, I took my number 3 guy because that makes sense.
There's a reason Jeff and I talk about the draft, but we don't actually participate in any drafts besides those ridiculous, silly ones here that we get wrong. Before we get into it, I'm Justin Laddie, other co-host. I have been covering the Guardians minor league system since 2007. So you would think that I would be much better at this, but I'm not. And I've been the editor-in-chief of Guardians Baseball Insider. I am currently a freelancer at the News Herald and the Morning Journal, where I'm not really having much to write about these days, but I'll probably have some on the 40-man roster when the season's over. Hopefully that's a long way in the offing to think about. Maybe they should stop letting me write about prospects, Jeff, because I'm going to pull it up if you're watching on YouTube. Our prospect draft it left a lot to be desired.
I'm okay with my lineup. I am okay with my lineup. I don't know. I got to go back and listen. I did some weird choices.
We did some weird choices.
Outside of just trying to block you from getting all the catchers again, because that's my one goal.
Yeah. So if you're not watching on YouTube, we'll just kind of go through some of our best picks and some of our worst picks. The first pick, I ended up with the first pick, and I took Kyle Manzardo because he was both of our top prospects at the time. I don't have any regrets about that pick because I thought for sure he'd be up sooner than he was. And it took an injury to Stephen Kwan to bring him up, and he obviously was not quite ready. I mean, he was ready, but anymore with guys, there's going to be an adjustment period, I think. And I'm not surprised there was one for him. But I mean, we just talked about in the show yesterday. He has been the Guardians' best hitter besides Lane Thomas since he was recalled. So I'm not saying Kyle Manzardo is going to have an OPS over 1,000 going forward forever, but I feel pretty justified in that pick based on how he has really changed this lineup and helped this offense out. And that's why a big reason why they were able to clinch the division, because Lane Thomas came around and Kyle Manzardo kind of showed us who he really was as a prospect. So I have no regrets about that pick, even though they're, both of our rosters really had a good chunk of major leaguers on it. At least mine did. I think mine had more major leaguers than yours did, but I have no regrets about the Manzardo pick, and I still think that's the right call. I still think he was the top prospect coming into the season.
And at the same time, I came back and took Ralphy because he was clearly number 2. And, I don't have an issue there, especially because at the time I could still quantify him as a catcher. And then I took Cantillo. And hey, that one looks pretty good right now with the way he's pitched. Like,
yeah, it took a while for that one to.
Yeah, it took a while, but it's like that's the thing. Like, I don't really. Brian Rocchio at 6 and Cleo Watson 7 are probably where I started to fall off the rails a bit. But I don't know. I don't hate my team. It's like I got Parker Messick at 8. Alamon was pretty late for me. I got Valera late, who had a good bounce back. I mentioned I took Cooper Ingle, who was one of the big breakout guys. I took CJ Kafis, another big breakout guy. Took Alex Mooney, who in the first half looked like a breakout guy. I took all the breakout guys, but Peterson and Genao, and that's because no one took them.
Yeah, we definitely, I will say that the big story of our list here, and I can tweet this for the audio listeners just so they can see, but I think the biggest story on both of our lists is, neither of us took Austin Peterson, who I think right now is both of our number 2 pitching prospects behind Braylon Doughty. I would say Doughty and Peterson.
I'm debating him ahead of Doughty. He might be my number 1 pitching prospect when it all gets said and done.
Yeah, I can see the argument. I can't argue against you on that because I think the ceiling is higher for Doughty,
but they're 8-9 right now. So
yeah, I don't have my list up in front of me for current, but
it's just a draft.
I do have Doughty in front of me, in front of Peterson. Currently, I will say, neither of us took Angel Genao, who for me was the best player in the farm system this year, although Jason Churio won a bunch of awards down in the minors from like Baseball America and coaches, and MILB.com had him as with a bunch of awards too. He was the low A MVP this year, and he would have been in Lake County at the end of the year had he not broken his wrist, which is really unfortunate. So, I mean, Churio ended up being a good one. I think Churio finally kind of showed us who he is. You have to be careful about how much stock you put into low A performance. We were just talking about that off the air before we started recording. So,
look how hard the adjustment's been for Ralphie.
Yeah, Ralphie's a big one. He's not catching anymore. You took him as a catcher, and I think we can safely say Ralphie's catching days are over at this point. It's going to be first base, outfield.
Yeah,
I actually think coming into the draft in 2025 when we do this in spring training, Ralphie will probably keep playing first base, but you can make the case to draft him as an outfielder.
Agreed.
I'm really glad he hit that home run in the postseason because his balance of the season in Lake County was not great. He was popping everything up to left field. He was just not getting around on the ball at all. So seeing him turn on one, hitting it like 420 feet or whatever it was really good to see. I will take credit for drafting 2/3 of the trade for Lane Thomas. I took Alex Clemmy with my 3rd pick, and I took Rafael Ramirez with my 9th pick. And Clemmy had an okay year. The walks were up and down for him. Ramirez just never hit. Just had a very hard time hitting. And I was really high on Rafael Ramirez coming into the year. And, you and I both said now, I think Angel Genao, there's a good chance that he might be the number 2 prospect in the system behind Travis Bazzana. Because the guy, we took a lot of, I think if you're looking at the list, we took a lot of guys in this list that graduated, right? Joey Cantillo, I don't think he's going to quite graduate. I think he'll be a rookie next year still. But I took Manzardo, who was going to graduate, and then Gaddis. I took Hunter Gaddis as a starter, which we have to get into about the bullpen, like you said with Cade Smith. He already graduated. Andrew Walters is not going to graduate, but he made the majors. And I took Tim Herron, who was going to graduate, and then you took Rocchio, who graduated off this list. and the rest of the guys are all AAA. So a lot of the guys we took were at the top of the scale. Rocchio, Manzardo, DeLuca was in AA, Gaddis, Walters, Heron, Aleman, Cantillo, Dion. All these guys were at the highest level of the system, essentially. And the thing we were saying off air about the draft, about this grouping, was it was not a strong farm system coming into the year.
No.
And if we did a redraft today, I would think that half our team is probably going to be, half our teams would be Lake County and below. Would you agree? I can't think of more than, like, the only guys from Akron I would draft right now are probably Peterson and Messick.
Peterson, Messick. I think Magnus Ellerts has a case to be one of the top 4 relievers.
That's fair.
Okay. Cooper Ingle for sure.
Yeah, Cooper Ingle did make it to AA this year, so that.
So I would have him there.
Okay, so there's 4 guys in AA that are worth drafting.
But I feel like those 4 are pretty much slam dunks. Maybe I'm wrong, but and Capus.
The rest of that
5.
group, though, Capus. So, but the rest of that's 5 players out of all we took. I think the rest of them, except for Brito and DeLuca, I think the rest of them probably are single A and high A, and even the draft guys. So the system got really deep because of a good draft, and because Churio emerged and Genao emerged, and they added some guys.
Wilfredo Antunez, you and I talked about off air. Like he's. We
didn't talk about Antunez. We didn't talk about Luis Morejo, who is a guy we really like.
Oh yeah, you and I. But he's a fun deep sleeper. You want a helium deep sleeper guy? It's Morejo. Noel, right, so, like you and I both admit we were too low on Noel.
Well, I think we're coming around to see what happened to Noel.
I think the good and the bad is there enough to be like, okay, like at the same time, I mean, I don't know who I would replace. I mean, outside of Knapsack, like that's a clear one. And then again, I just want to point out for those who are curious at home, me complaining, it's like I had Leftwich 34th on my big board. I had Davis Sharp 32nd. I had Cade Smith 27th. I am so annoyed at myself looking at that. Why did I take a guy 7 spots lower? Like that's just one of the dumbest things I've seen in a while, and I'm very annoyed with myself when it comes to the draft.
We're going to talk about some of the guys we missed on. We'll kind of talk about some of our regrets. We'll talk about maybe our best pick as well in the prospect draft. We'll look back at Travis Bazzana's season as well, and maybe some other draft picks from 2024 since we're talking about it right now. All that coming up on the rest of today's Lockdown Guardians. Passion, drive, patience, the formula for winning championships that the Guardians are looking to do is what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle leveled up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, whatever you are into, speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts, your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. All the parts you need, all the prices you want. It is easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins like we didn't do in our prospect draft, for the most part. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Check out our pal Sully over at Locked On MLB. The Mariners and Astros right now are in a tight one, and the Mariners could come out ahead. I'm sure he'll be talking about that at playoff races, pennant races. There's a lot of off days. The Red Sox, the Tigers are surging. Shohei Ohtani is going for 60-60. Jose Ramirez is going for 40-40. I hope he's talking about that. We'll see. All that and more on Locked On MLB with our pal Sully, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Every day I'm going to look back at this prospect draft, Jeff, and I am going to regret probably taking Diane Frias and not Angel Genao. Diane Frias, for me, probably the guy who fell off the most on my list. I had a lot of hope for Jake Fox coming into the year because he finished 2024 or 2023 so strong in Lake County, and he looked like a guy who could play center field. And then he repeated the level, didn't hit, and then now he's back to being a utility guy, so I lost kind of some faith there. The Diane Frias one I'm most disappointed in because I thought coming into 2024, Diane Frias, or I should say ending 2023, Diane Prius for me was a fringe 40-man guy. I was like, oh, he plays enough defense. He's got some pop. He runs. He makes contact. I thought, that's a guy that's on the fringe of the 40-man roster. I don't know if anyone's going to take him, but I thought he was like right on the fringes. And that's a spot I could have taken Angel Genao. That is a spot I could have taken. I took on Angel Martinez a couple picks before that, obviously. But, I could have taken, let's see, that for Frias was 15. So on the board was still George Valera, which, ouch on that one for him. We talked about how we didn't take Austin Peterson, who is now 12th on my prospect list right now at the moment, and probably is going to be a lot higher. Yeah.
On the draft, I should say.
Yeah. A lot of, John Ken's Noel is one you mentioned, which I think we both thought we thought that both Noel and Valera were going to make their debuts this year. We just didn't know how. And the Noel thing, like you said, there's the good and the bad. I think what Noel has done at the major league level has been exactly who we thought he'd be. He'd be a guy who can hit some home runs in bunches and then chases wildly and doesn't do anything productive. And he clearly is not a guy you want in the outfield for more than 5 innings if you're leading.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting because for as much as we agree, like I had at the end of last year, I had a top 35 and then I left the 36th spot blank on my list. And then I had the next grouping of guys. And you had 5 guys in that next grouping that were like kind of my lowest tier with Fox, Humphreys, Ramirez, Zibin, and Frias. So those were like the guys you and I strongly disagreed on. Like those 5 dudes weren't anywhere near my board. The highest rated players that did not get drafted from my prospect list were Justin Campbell, because at that time we knew he wasn't going to pitch. Jonathan Rodriguez, who, he had another great year, but he didn't play. And then the next 2 would be Petey Halpin, who I've fallen off my top 30. Jose Devers, who's fallen off my top 30. I got tricked by a hot second half. And then Cade Smith. I'd have to get to my 7th best available to get to Angel Genao. So yeah, looking at that list, can you throw it up one more time? Like I think Leftwich is like the big one, because again, it doesn't make sense. And he's my relief 1. Like I reached for Leftwich and I don't remember why. If not him, it's Ross Carver. Like you and I both thought Carver would be something better. You and I thought that like, hey, this is a guy to watch. You and I had some before this. Like I felt like I was stealing him from you at the time. Like I was intentionally taking Carver from you. If I would get, I think part of my problem though, it's like if I didn't take him, it was going to be Denholm or Dylan DeLuca. And DeLuca hadn't pitched at all, but those were my next 2 starters outside of Campbell, who we knew wasn't going to pitch. So, yeah, it was not great. I should have trusted more in Peterson at the time. I was ride or die with him, and then I fell off a bit. But yeah, I think Carver and Leftwich, and I don't have a good reason for Leftwich being the guy down there. And Knapsack, I think it was our buddy over at Blast Baseball had convinced me that there was some, and he had a solid year. It's not like that's a huge miss. Like Khalil Watson's probably the biggest offensive miss, but I mean, I'll take my team offensively. I feel like I really, and like I said, it was good. Getting Ingle and Kafis were guys I was top 25 prospects for me who broke out.
Yeah, you took Ingle as an outfielder because he played outfield in college, and that's done. He is just going to be a catcher at this point.
Yeah. Which is fair because I got
offensive season.
I got to move Ralphie to the op. I'm just flipping Ralphie and Ingle. Like,
yeah, you could do that now. Yeah. Ingle. The only thing for Ingle, friend of the show, if you haven't had a chance, we did have him on the show a while ago after right before he went to Akron. He hit the ball well in Akron. The power kind of faded when he got to Akron. The on-base skills were there. And I think there's some work to be done with his arm defensively. Everything else defensively really looked good for him this year. But the arm, I think, needs to come along for him a little bit. And he talked about how important it was and how much he learned from Cleveland to work on his swing to pull the ball in the air more. For a guy who understands the importance of that and was able to do it at times enough to hit for more power in the majors or the minors than he did in college. His fly ball rates and his pull rates were kind of iffy if you look at the data as the whole. So I think there's still some work to be done there, but that's great because that means there's there's more he can improve on. That Ingle had a great year. He was the MVP of the Midwest League this year, and there are things he can still improve upon. So that's good that he's already done that, and there's still things that he can get better at. That's a good thing. I took Ryan Webb as my second arm there, and I have no regrets about that because he should have been in Columbus a lot sooner than he was, I think. And he pitched really well at Columbus, despite the fact that his fastball was about 90 to 92 most days. So he's not quite in the Will Dion range of fastball, where Dion's like 88, 90 and tops out at 91. I'm going to say for Ryan Webb, Astros fans are leaving the stadium. They're down 6-1 on the top of the ninth. So the Guardians' magic number to clinch the first round bye is down to 1.
Thank you.
Bye, Astros fans.
Thank you, Seattle.
Yes, Seattle. Good showing there. Where was I at? Ryan Webb. So he had a really good year in AA. He was voted best changeup in AA. And it was great to see the data on him at AAA when he got there. He got a ton of swings and misses on that changeup. So it's a legit pitch, that changeup right there. So the question now for Ryan Webb is he Logan Allen 2.0, where, Logan Allen's fastball and the rest of his secondaries just couldn't emerge this year because he had poor command and the fastball just doesn't do enough because of poor command and he couldn't get to his secondaries? Or can Ryan Webb be a little bit better than that? For me, I think he's an automatic add in the offseason to the 40-man roster.
Yes.
Just because of his proximity to the majors, the changeup, and the fact that he's left-handed. So that's an easy one right there. That's a win. And the relief thing. Oh, my God, the relief thing. Now I took Walters, who probably should have been up sooner than he was, which, he's pitched in back-to-back games now 3 times in the majors after not doing it once in the minors. So lesson learned there that it doesn't really matter. And then Tim Herron, had not graduated prospect status yet. I took him as my other reliever, and that one came through pretty well. We were talking off air. Cleveland has completely changed his pitch mix from last year to this year, and it's done wonders for him. The walk rate is still in the double digits. Also, friend of the show, Tim Herron. It's done wonders for him. And I was looking, and I was like, man, his home run to fly ball rate is 3.9%, which I'm like, there is no way he's going to sustain that. But then, Jeff, you looked under the hood a little more, and he's suppressing a lot of fly balls because he's throwing more curveballs, he's throwing more sliders, he's reduced his forcing,
sinker. I think he does
he's throwing more sinkers.
Yeah.
And then the one about Cade Smith. I'll say this about Cade Smith. I should have been higher on him coming into the year. The reason I was a little bit lower on Cade Smith is because in the minors he just didn't throw strikes. Like, he struck out a ton of dudes in the minors, but I was concerned that he didn't have a secondary that was going to separate him from in the major leagues consistently. And his walk rates in the minors were all in the double digits. And I thought, okay, well, this is a guy who can miss some bats, but he's going to walk guys like, James Karinchak, right? He's got a 6% walk rate. I never saw that coming. So, kudos to Cleveland and the players. Tim Herron completely evolved pitch mix, which has turned him around this year. And then Cade Smith, who has the best command of his career. Now, granted, he's thrown more fastballs than he ever has, but, this is one of those things. Development is still possible at the big league level.
Yeah, 100%. And again, no credit to Cade Smith because why did I draft, go drop in the comments. Why did I draft the guy 7 spots lower? I must have said something because then I took Alamon after him, and Alamon was much higher than left, which in my rankings, I had Alamon, by the way, 18th in my rankings. So
Alamon had a lot of helium because of his scoreless stretch last year.
But I took Leftwich before Alamon.
That's an interesting one because Alamon 100% was going to debut this year.
Well, I think I was just being a bit of a jerk, like I like to be, because I think you'd already taken all your relievers. And that might have been me trying to take another starter away from me. That's what I bet it was. I bet it was like, hey, now you can't use Leftwich as a starter.
Well, I did take Hunter Gaddis as a starter, so I'm taking credit for that. I thought he would be. My reasoning for Gaddis too was like I thought for sure he would be in the minors as a depth guy because the rotation was going to have, depth quality. And turns out the quality of depth did stink for Cleveland rotation wise, but they stuck with Gaddis in the bullpen, and guess what? Now he's part of the big four. And so my bullpen, looks pretty good right now, right? Walters, Herron, and Gaddis as a reliever. That's pretty darn good.
It's hard to
considering, considering you've also got Daniel Espino, who didn't pitch this year, and you got Parker Messick, which was good. But yeah, a lot of things we got wrong. More to get into that. More maybe on some Travis Bazzana stuff as we finish up today's episode of Lockdown Guardians, and the Astros are 1 out away from letting the Guardians be one step closer to the number 2 seed. So maybe you're gonna go to Houston for the ALDS. Maybe on your way back, you're gonna head to Kansas City. Who knows? Explore. This episode of Lockdown Guardians is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. Explore those U.S. cities. Go to Houston for the ALDS for one of those games. Maybe it'll be Kansas City. Maybe it'll be Detroit. It might not be Minnesota. Who wants to go to Minnesota? But Booking.com, they can make you a fan of your rival cities, even Minnesota. Maybe you do want to go there. I don't know. Booking.com can help you out with that. I've talked about how I've used it multiple times. For my honeymoon, coming back from my honeymoon when the travel got disastrous and I needed a hotel room in Miami very, very late, very last second. That was huge. And I also used it to go to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. I actually stayed in Utica. Got me a nice place outside of town away from all the traffic. So I was never a fan of Utica before, but guess what? I am now because of Booking.com. That's what they can do for you. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals, maybe even Minnesota. Booking.com, booking.yeah.
Now let's talk about our good friends over at FanDuel, one of our longest sponsors. That makes them one of the best, in my opinion. Right now, before I even get into the ad read, I got a hot bet for you here. The Boston Red Sox are plus 49,000 to win the World Series. So you can make a lot of money. Boston beat the Toronto. Yeah, they beat Toronto tonight, and they are only 3.5 games out of the wild card. I think they're due. You can make some big money. But the others, to be less silly, Seattle is plus 13,000. They'll be a game and a half out with a chance to really. They can't catch Houston, but still, there's some ones going. Cleveland, if you're curious, plus 1,300 has the 6th best World Series odds. World Series winner odds. That's right. Cleveland has the 6th best odds to win the World Series. Dodgers, Phillies, Yankees, Houston, Baltimore, and then Cleveland. But let's now do the official ad. Hey, NFL fans, you start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of your game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. It's $200 in bonus bets. That's free money. That's FanDuel.com.
The battle for the Ohio Cup finishes up Tuesday and Wednesday. Check out all the action on your SiriusXM app. Just search Guardians. That's going to be Tanner Bivey and old friend Jacob Junis, former Royal. One time he's been all over the place, really. Jacob Junis has.
Brewers good parts of this year.
Yeah, he's been kind of all over. All right, so we talked about. I think the one pick I'm taking off. Yeah, the one pick we think we both like back. You want Cade Smith back over Jack Left. So I think that's your big regret, right?
I don't know. I gotta have to. I mean, it's still a reliever. I think if I want to do something, let's get rid of Cleo Watson, shift my stuff around, and get me Genao.
Yeah, it's
just
fair.
because,
I don't know. Cade Smith had a pretty good year.
He has, but it's just a reliever, and it's the 13th pick.
Prospect, yeah.
Like I said, give me. I think I'd rather have Peterson over Austin Carver, or maybe even over Daniel Espino since he didn't pitch at all, or Will Dion, who was my fourth overall pick and was awful. I mean, the bullpen definitely let me down between injuries and terribleness. Dion and Carver were bad. I feel good about that lineup. Khalil Watson, really the only weak link, but pitching wise, it's not good.
I think that really just does, except for Peterson and Messick here, I think that really does sum things up, right? The starting pitching group was not good. You went with Cantillo. Cantillo was healthy at the time. I remember Cantillo missed, 4 months with the hamstring issue.
Or he might have been with this team much longer.
Yeah, he would have been up a lot sooner had he not gotten hurt. Dion, we were both kind of thinking, we were trying to figure out what made him so good at AA, and then we learned that the things that made him good at AA don't necessarily work at AAA. The Espino thing we didn't know at the time, but when we do this draft in 2025, I don't think either of us are taking Espino unless it's the last picks. We'll see. But I mean, Zibin's in the same boat. I took Jacob Zibin because I went for upside at the time. We didn't know he was going to miss the year again. Humphreys missed some time as well. So like the pitching here, you can see like it was not a great pitching group, but now, it's Messick, it's Peterson. It's going to be the high school kids next year that are going to be infused in this. And the relief group won't be as good. Like we'll be able to take Andrew Walters next year. We'll be able to take Franco Alamon. So I bet you there'll be a good back and forth on those two guys, because those two guys could help with, one of the biggest things we're concerned about with 2025, whenever that comes around, as far as the playoffs being over, is bullpen hangover for 2025. But Walters and Alamon have a chance to impact the bullpen really hugely in 2025, because those are two guys that won't be as susceptible to the hangover as a Cade Smith or a Tim Herron, possibly, or Hunter Gaddis. So that plays a big role. The George Valera thing definitely stinks. He'll still be eligible for this next year. Chase DeLauder, just a lot of injuries on this list, right? We didn't talk about Webb and Francisca, who had I can't bring myself to buy in on Welbin just yet because of the Brian Rocchio contact heavy approach. We don't know much about the batted ball quality, and Cleveland just loves their hackers. They love guys that will not take pitches. But Rocchio's got a healthy walk rate in the majors, but I just, I worry about that. We didn't talk about Kafis much so far, and Kafis probably had the biggest power breakout in the minors this season for Cleveland. He really cooled off in the second half. I would like to see Kafis in AAA to start the year next year, because Manzardo should be in Cleveland to start the year in 2025. I don't think there's any reason to have Kafis at AA next season. I don't think there's any reason to leave him down there. But yeah, the pitching, there's just a lot of injuries that we didn't account, that really did us in here with a lot of these guys. And I think coming into 2025, the pitching will be in much better shape. But the problem with the pitching is, it's going to be Cantillo. It's still going to be Messick and Peterson. And then it's going to all be high school guys. So like, there's still going to be that big gap. We'll still have Ryan Webb. We'll see if they do anything over the offseason, but it's going to be hard to take Zibin. It's going to be hard to take Espino. It's going to be hard to take Campbell, because those guys have all not pitched in 2 seasons. So if those guys are somehow healthy next year, that's a big if. It's going to be a really interesting situation. But at the time, there's still going to be a big gap between Cantillo, Webb, Messick, Peterson, and then it's going to be like a huge drop off, those injured guys and the high school kids.
No, I think you're right. I think there's going to be, there's a lot of questions, right? And it comes down to how much you like those high school kids, right? That's really the separator. I mean, even looking at my list, which I have,
I didn't like myself in high school, so I don't know if I like high schoolers anymore.
I'm just looking at this list. It's like, it's like essentially the I don't know if I want to call them the big 3 of the upper level, not counting Cantillo since he's already there, and then it's Tugboat, and then it's high school kids.
Yeah, we didn't even mention Tugboat. Neither of us took Tugboat. He had a breakout season in the minors.
Mm-hmm.
He should be, and he'll be in AA to start next year. I'll be curious to see where we take him. I have Tugboat right now at, I have him at 26. And I think I'm going to have him a lot higher than that, because that includes Noel hadn't graduated at the time, and Valera was not hurt again. So like he'll be up. I'm probably going to move Espino down a little more. I don't know if Cantillo will graduate at this point, but he may move up for me a little bit. But I think the thing we're going to find out with Wilkinson and with Tugboat is that, can he live at 88, 90 with the fastball? Because this is the Will Dion conversation again too. And is he Logan Allen? Like Logan Allen had a great 2023, but 2024 we saw he was a nibbler. His fastball wasn't effective enough, and you need that to set up your secondaries. And Tugboat's going to have to prove that throwing his fastball is unique enough. That's the question you always get on Twitter. Are you concerned about the fastball velocity? And Tugboat knows how to pitch. He's got a great changeup. The slider has a ton of sweep. It's going to come down to, are his fastball traits unique enough? The low release point, the deception and his delivery, the command he has of it, are those going to offset the fact that he throws 88 to 90 and tops out at 91?
I mean, I think even though he's been hurt and we haven't seen that much of him, there's one could make a case for DeLuca as a higher rated prospect just because of what the stuff was when he came back.
Yeah, his last start, he was throwing 94, 96, which was a huge bump for him. I would love to see what happens for him a year out of Tommy John as well. So, DeLuca can be on this list as well. Yeah, I have him at 32. So and that was before, seeing the velocity bump. So hopefully next year he could bring up. We didn't bring up Doug Nikhazy, who I think would be a guy we also would have on our list. Yeah, we didn't bring up Nikhazy.
And he's like early 20s to me on my current list, which is again
maybe we should do another draft now after the season and compare it as we talk about it. Maybe we should have done a post season.
We got time.
Prospect draft.
Thursday show because we.
Yeah, we'll do it all over again Thursday. We'll get another prospect episode out there. But yeah, Nikhazy, I think, is a guy who, finally made a lot of changes to his profile this year after some years of not wanting to make changes, and that made a big deal for him. So I think Nikhazy is right. I have them right next to each other. I think Nikhazy is right on the fringes of the 40-man roster too. I don't know for sure if I would roster him. I think I would roster Webb over him.
I would, but I would roster them both. I think there's enough space. To me, it's them and Alaman are pretty easy. I feel like there's always one more. That's really it,
right?
There's someone that I'm blanking on. It always comes up. But
Antunes, are you rostering Antunes?
He's debatable. I feel like there's one other guy that I keep forgetting about who I should at least consider at that point. I could be wrong.
I don't know. I don't really see anybody else. Like you got Petey Halpin this year, who's not going to make it, who shouldn't make it. I mean, there's the whole rest of that class between Denholm and Denholm. I will say this: Denholm pitched really well in AA. He should such a weird season. We talked about how they lack pitching depth in the minors in terms of prospects and guys that were ready for the majors. The backfill was still very goofy because Messick and Denholm and Peterson and Tugboat all should have been up levels long before they were. All those guys should have been promoted long before they were. And we were still saying the system was still pretty lax in terms of pitching prospects, but those guys still all should have been promoted, but a lot of it had to do to backfilling as well. We didn't really have time to get into Travis Bazzana's debut. We didn't have time to get into other prospect stuff as well. So you can look forward to that all coming up this week on another episode of Lockdown Guardians. And, of course, tomorrow we will recap the first game of the final stretch of the coveted Ohio Cup. Tanner Bybee will oppose Jacob Junis. He wants the Ohio Cup MVP. That's what he wants. He's going to go out there. He had a good start against the Reds the first time out, except for one pitch to Heimer Candelario. So I think it'll be a little better for this time.
I'm going to say that tomorrow Cleveland clinches the bye. That's going to be my statement about tomorrow.
All right.
That they're going to
Cleveland's going to clinch the bye tomorrow with a win behind Tanner Bybee on the mound. He is going to shut down the Reds, and they're going to pop champagne for the third time in less than 7 days.
And thank you
for listening to us tomorrow.
Thank you to our Mariners fans who might be joining us and for winning the game today. We appreciate you. Best of luck as you chase down the Astros. We'll be rooting for you during your chase.
Or the wild card.
Yeah, or the wild card. But I'd rather have them catch the Astros.
See Seattle in the postseason. Maybe. Ooh, I don't know. That rotation, maybe not. Oof.
But thank you all who joined us.
We'll get into those debates eventually.
Yep. Thank you all who joined us. Rating and review. We didn't have any iTunes reviews this week, so throw one out if you have not. Thank you to everyone, though, who took part. Make sure to go back and watch yesterday's show. It's hard on a Monday, but we appreciate all you who did. And go Guardians, go.